Hello, I'm going to show you how to do a small crocheted flower motif. It is one that I actually use on a sweater of mine. You can actually use one of two types of material. One is the size 10 crochet thread. It's a real fine thread. And then you would use a size 6 hook or size 7 hook depending on your gauge. Today I'm actually going to use, this is a, it's called Amazing Lace by Lion Brand yarns, and it's a super fine size 1. This is what I actually used for my sweater. It's fine like this, like the thread, but it's a little bit softer. So I actually use a size 2 millimeter. I don't know if you can really see that. It's a size 2 millimeter crochet hook. All right, to start with, I do my starting loop or whatever you want to call it. I just take my thread, wrap it over top of itself, then I go under and over, then I bring that loop up, tighten it, but don't make it too tight, because if you make it too tight, you can't get your loop, you can't get your hook in there, that loop. So, all right, so starting ring is actually a chain of 12. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then we're going to take our hook, we're going to put it in that very first chain, just like that. And we're going to take a yarn over and pull up that loop and do kind of like a slip stitch right there. All right, so you got your first little ring. So now round 1, we're going to do a chain 3. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3. This actually counts as your first DC. And then we're going to do a total of 24 DCs. So 23 more DCs. So if this one counts as your first one, it's going to be 24 total. So to do a DC, you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that ring, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that makes DC number 2. Another DC, so a total of 24 DCs. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. So you'll also notice that I actually crocheted over this little, your end, so that you're basically crocheting it in as you go. All right, so the last stitch you're going to grab these 2 top loops right here, and you're going to slip stitch to form your circle. All right, so that's end of round 1. Round 2, we're going to chain 12 to start with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so now we are going to do 3 single crochets to start with, and you're going to start from the second chain from the hook. So we're going to go 1, 2, and we're going to single crochet. So a single crochet, you're just going to go right into that chain, yarn over, pull that loop up, yarn over, and pull through 2. We're going to do that 2 more times, if I can get it in there. There's 2, and then there's 3. Next stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet, so it's very similar to a DC. You're going to yarn over, insert your hook in the next chain, yarn over, pull up your loop, yarn over, pull through 3 loops. The next stitch is going to be a DC. You're actually going to DC the next 4 chains. So we're going to do 4 DCs. Got it all tangled there. All right, there's 1. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. Now we're going to do a half double in the next stitch, all through all 3 loops. Then we're going to do a single crochet in the next 2 chains. So single crochet, single crochet. Okay, from here you're going to skip the next DC on your starting foundation. So you're going to skip this DC and you're going to slip stitch in the next DC. Then we're going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now some people would do a slip stitch in the next 3 stitches, but I actually like doing a single crochet in that very first stitch. So we're going to go from the second chain from the hook and we're going to do a single crochet, and then we're going to do a slip stitch in the next 2 stitches, or the next 2 chains, 1 and 2. Then we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go back to that foundation and we're going to skip the next DC and slip stitch in the next DC. There you go. Now we're going to repeat that first petal all over again. So it's 12 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then with 3 single crochets on the second from the second chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3. then HDC, or half double crochet. Then we're going to do 4 DCs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next stitch is the half double. And then 2 single crochets. Skip the next DC and then slip stitch in the next DC. And we're going to do one more. And the next one is chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to do a single crochet in that second chain from the hook. 1. And then we're going to do 2 slip stitches. 1, 2. Chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Skip 1 DC and slip stitch in the next DC. You're going to keep going around to the end just like that, alternating the big petal and the little petal. We'll see you at the end of this row. You'll stop at the next to last petal. Okay, we're almost done with round 2. So what we're looking at is that we've got 6 of those large petals. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we've got 5 of the little ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to work on that last little petal, but we're going to do it a little bit different. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to do a triple crochet in that last stitch of that row. So, well, it was actually technically the first stitch of that row, the beginning of the row 2. We're going to insert our hook right there. Oh, to do a treble, let's back up. We're going to do 1, 2 yarn overs, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up the loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through those last 2. Now technically your next row, which is round 3, what I find is that I need more stitches with the crochet thread and less stitches with the lace yarn. So with the thread you want to crochet 13 chains in the next step. But for this one, for this yarn, I'm going to do 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we're going to grab this first petal, the large petal, and we're going to find a nice little spot here where you can grab 2 strands of thread. You're going to insert your hook right there, and we're going to pull up our yarn, and we're going to create a slip stitch. So again, this part with thread you'll want to crochet 10 chains, but for this yarn I'm going to do 9 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the next small petal In that single crochet that we did, we're going to find those 2 loops, grab those, well, if I can get it to cooperate here. There we go, those 2 loops. And we're going to pull up our yarn and we're going to do a slip stitch. We're going to do that all the way around, making sure that we catch every one of the petals to the end. We'll be back at the end. Okay, so we made it to the end of row 3, and we're going to show you how to finish it. So we're going to do the 9 for the yarn, 9 chains for the yarn, and the 10 chains for the thread. So I did 3 chains, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. So in this last stitch, which is actually the first stitches of the round 3, we're going to count 4 chains up. So 1, 2, let's do the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to grab that chain. We're going to pull through there, create a slip stitch. There you go. There's the end of round 3. So the last round, round 4, what you're going to do is you're going to chain 1, and then you're going to do, I believe it's 12. Let me double check my notes. Yep, it's 12 single crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we did 12 single crochets in the next loop, or the next chain space, I guess you could call it too. So the next step, or the next stitch, is actually a 5 chain picot, or picot, whichever way you want to pronounce it. I pronounce it picot. So we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to grab these 2 strands on the side. So this one and that one right next to it. Grab those, put our hook through both of those. We're going to yarn over, pull through, and create a slip stitch. In the next chain space, we're going to do another 12 single crochets, and how I space it is I try to get the 6 in by the middle, and then the 6, of course, on the second half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can kind of squeeze those over just a little bit. 10, 11, and 12. You're not going to do a picot right here. You'll want to do the picots at the top of each of the large petals. So I'm going to do the next 12 with you. Maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And we're going to do that 5 chain picot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to grab those 2 strands on the side, pull up the loop, and slip stitch. All right, so by the time you get to the end, you'll have 1 picot on top of each of the large petals. You're going to keep doing the 12 single crochets until you get to the end, and I'll show you how to finish it off. Okay, we're back. Whoopsies, I was almost done and I did it without even thinking about it. So I'm going to take out that last stitch. It's second nature to just finish something the way it's supposed to be finished. We're going to pull that up. Alright, so to this point you've got all of your single crochets in your chain spaces. You got all of your 4 picots, or excuse me, all of your 6 picots, and you're on that last stitch right before being done. So all you're gonna do is just put your hook right in that first stitch of the row, yarn over and pull up and slip stitch. And then I just snip the thread, give myself a little bit of extra room so that I can weave in those ends and pull that up. Alright, I'm going to take my needle, just a real small needle. It's a little bit bigger than what you would use for regular sewing, but smaller than what you would use for large yarn. About the same as you would use for the thread, the crochet thread. Alright, so this is what I usually do, is I just grab that first stitch, pull it through there, and I just tuck them underneath here. I just keep going and going and going until I'm satisfied where I want it to go. I'm going to go all the way down to the end there. Make sure that no needle is poking out on the other side. Shove it through. It's a little tight. Alright. Where's my end? Pull up my end there. There we go. Alright, then we're going to take it back. We're going to not grab that first because you don't want to, you want to take that next one over so that it doesn't go right back through, so it catches it. So you'll see that this is a stitch right here. So we're going to skip that. We're going to go over that. We're going to shove it through, back the other way. This should keep your ends from unweaving. Well, it's even tighter this time. A little extra thread to compete with. Try not to pull it back through too tight, because if you do, then it's obvious where you weaved your end in. So do it real gentle. There you go. Just kind of pull it apart a little bit so you can't even see where the end is. We're going to snip that off. We're going to sew in this one. Don't really need to, but I do just to make it a little bit more secure. Grab an extra stitch right there. We're just going to grab a little spot right under here. Now you can go all the way back to the other end so that you can't see where that yarn stops and starts, or you can just take it right here and go back the other way. As long as when you go back the other direction, you skip that first strand. And then when you pull it out the other end, don't pull it out too fast or too tight. That way it's not obvious where it went weaving back the other direction. And you snip it off. There you go. Now you'll notice it's kind of a little lopsided, a little wonky. And that's okay. Because what you're going to do for this yarn, because it's mostly like acrylic and that type of stuff, you don't want to use a regular iron on this because you will melt your thread or your yarn. So you want to use a steam iron, and then I would lay it on a flat block, or like even on this with maybe a towel underneath, and just make sure that you mold it, because it's going to be wet. When you steam iron it, it's going to be wet. Or you can do the traditional blocking method, which is getting it completely wet, pinning it to a board in place, maybe even starching it a little bit, but I find that a steam iron, pulling it into place and letting it completely dry, that usually is sufficient enough. Same thing with this, kind of. I mean, you see it's kind of a little wonky. Now this, because it's cotton, you can actually use a regular iron that has a place to put water and create that steam, because anytime you block something, you want it to have a little bit of wetness, because that's what creates that block. And then you can either do this the traditional method, block it with, get it completely wet and use pins and block it, or you can just use that regular steam, a regular iron that has the steam in it, and let it dry after it's, you know, kind of mold it into place, and then lay it flat and let it dry completely. You'll find that when you use an iron versus the regular old-fashioned blocking technique, it dries a lot faster, and then you get to move on to the next step a whole lot sooner. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got.